In many ways, this speech is about fixing decades of decay. Some of it obvious, some of it hidden. We are clearing out the debris, removing the distractions, clearing the way for leaders to be leaders. You might say we're ending the war on warriors.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sentinel. On the last episode, we talked about what warrior ethos is all about, and I was going to come back and give you a presentation that I gave to my Marines, 1st Battalion, 6th Marines, back in 2003, and how we're going to implement warrior ethos. However, after hearing Secretary of War's speech, I'm going to sort of delay that episode for the next time. And I want to talk a little bit about his speech. However, listening to Hegseth's speech in front of these generals, it blew me away. I mean, honest to God, I was just in awe of what transpired. And to me, it was a Patton-type moment when he walked out there with the big flag behind him. It's sort of, taken out of the Patton movie. And it was quite impressive. And then I'm thinking, okay, now let's see what happens. While watching his speech, it kind of struck me that this is such an important message. It wasn't anything complicated or anything sophisticated or anything transformational. It was just basic leadership stuff that he's just reaffirming that with his senior leadership. And by them being in the audience, it just made such a huge impact. And that's when I said, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. And I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. So now let's talk about some of the wave top issues that he brought out. And, he talked about physical fitness, he talked about grooming, and he talked about standards. But there's some other things that he also talked about that are very, very important. And he made a statement during his speech that I literally fell out of the chair. The statement was, out with the Shirellis, the Mackenzies, and the Millies.
Out with the Shirellis, the Mackenzies, and the Millies. And in with the Stockdales, the Schwarzkopfs, and the Pattons.
Powerful words, I thought, and the reason they're powerful was because in front of that audience, all these, 800 some odd generals and senior enlisted people, they know who Shirelli is, they know who Mackenzie is, and they know who Milley is. And he basically outed them in public, in front of the very people that sort of viewed him as role models, as a way to progress in their careers. And he basically said they're out, right? In front of their own tribe. Powerful words. And the reason I almost fell out of the chair was because for me, it was powerful in the sense because it finally showed the Gold Star families, that there is going to be justice. And these people have been publicly shamed. And that's powerful stuff. And evidently, the day prior to this event taking place, there's 50 Gold Star families that were honored at the White House. So by, Hegseth making this statement in front of, the tribe of Milley, Mackenzie, and Shirelli, and all the others, he's basically saying, hey, guys, you guys are out. We don't want your leadership style, and we're going to change things here. And then he sort of starts talking about the important things, that he does not want to see fat generals in the halls of the Pentagon or in command of units and forces around the world. And I think that's an important statement.
Combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are.
Basically, it's the laws of attraction. Fat will attract fat. Fat does not attract fit. When all these fat generals, kept moving up the ranks, 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, they were pulling up other fat generals, so they had this fat farm of leadership rather than a fit leadership. And let me tell you something. I recognize some of the general officers in the audience, and some of those guys are freaking phenomenal. But they've been muzzled, they've been handcuffed, and Hegseth's speech was basically a rebirth for the U.S. military. The handcuffs are off. And he expects everybody to PT every day. That's what he said. And he expects everybody to take a physical fitness test, twice a year. The Marine Corps already does that. And then he expects everybody to weigh in twice a year. And part of the PT test in the Marine Corps is you have to do a weigh-ins. But he's expecting that out of the other services. So this is very important stuff that he's saying. Simple stuff, but nonetheless very, very important. because we got to get back to war fighting, and we got to get focused on what's important in combat. And fat people typically don't do well in combat. I've seen it firsthand. They just don't do it. And it's not just about being out of shape. It's just the other elements. This is the harsh environment that combat generally takes place in. It's hot, it's dusty, you're fighting at altitude, and typically if you're not in shape, you're not going to do well. And it's not only your physical shape, but your mental shape also. You got to be fit. And you got to be mentally tough, and you got to be physically tough. Then the other thing Hegseth basically told all the general officers, all his commanders is, hey, you focus on training, you focus on war fighting. That's what I want you to focus on. Focus on standards.
This means at the War Department, first and foremost, we must restore a ruthless, dispassionate, and common sense application of standards.
And it's going to be standards that are not going to be gender-based. It's going to be standards that are going to be based on the requirements of that MOS. And I think that's exactly what we've been talking about on Sentinel. It's almost like, and quite frankly, I know there's people in his office that watch this channel, and I'm sure, it's this mind meld that we got going on, and that's exactly what we need. We need to be able to train to standards. I'm just a grunt, but there's an acronym that's called DIME: diplomacy, information, military, and economics, right? And high-level strategic thinkers sort of operate on. And he basically told the general, you're the M. Don't worry about the D and I and the E. Forget about that shit. Focus on the M. Focus on training, focus on war fighting, and focus on lethality.
I need you locked in on the M. Not the D, the E, or the I. Not the DEI or the DIE of DIME. By that I mean the M.
I think that's so damn important because we had so many generals walking around like ambassadors and, State Department personnel and all that happy horse shit. And I never kind of understood that, right? And the other thing that he talked about is IGs and no more anonymous allegations. And I think that's very important because a lot of people were making anonymous allegations and ruining careers and basically weaponizing the IG process.
I'm issuing new policies that will overhaul the IG, EO, and MEO processes. I call it the no more walking on eggshells policy. We are liberating commanders and NCOs. We are liberating you. We are overhauling an inspector general process, the IG, that has been weaponized, putting complainers, ideologues, and poor performers in the driver's seat. No more frivolous complaints, no more anonymous complaints, no more repeat complainants, no more smearing reputations, no more endless waiting, no more legal limbo, no more sidetracking careers, no more walking on eggshells.
And talking about weaponizing, he also talked about toxic leadership, that this fat general officer leadership has taken the word toxic out of context and changed its definition.
Gentlemen, from this moment, any man without leggings, without a helmet, without a tie, any man with unshined shoes or soiled uniform is going to be skinned.
And we're going back to its original definition.
Definition of toxic has been turned upside down, and we're correcting that. That's why today, at my direction, we're undertaking a full review of the department's definitions of so-called toxic leadership, bullying, and hazing, to empower leaders to enforce standards without fear of retribution or second guessing. Of course, you can't do like nasty bullying and hazing. We're talking about words like bullying and hazing and toxic. They've been weaponized and bastardized inside our formations, undercutting commanders and NCOs. No more. Setting, achieving, and maintaining high standards is what you all do. And if that makes me toxic, then so be it.
Quite frankly, I experienced the same thing. I don't like to play the victim. I think it's a bunch of horse shit. It's the cards you're dealt and you just deal with it. But many of these fat people claimed that I was a toxic leader. What a crop of horse shit. And the reason being is because I grabbed a couple of flak jackets in combat, to get the person's attention, to know them, to wake up, or, what I'm telling you is pretty damn important, so pay freaking attention. That's what happens in combat. And and you sometimes you use loud words, sometimes you use profane language. That shit happens. But it's nothing personal.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Hey, Shula, you hope I never get back in there. I will kick your.
It's just the intensity of the moment. And but the soft gummy bear leadership turned all that shit around and said, oh, Khan's a toxic leader, and all that happy horse shit. And that's farthest from the truth. I was out there fighting shoulder to shoulder with my Marines. The toxic leadership is when you're sitting back on a fob reading freaking books because you don't have the moral courage or the physical courage to come out there and fight with your Marines. That's, to me, is toxic, right? You'll send your young Marines and soldiers and sailors out to take risks and die, but you're going to hide behind some HESCO barriers sitting on your fat ass reading a goddamn book. That's toxic to me. And I'm so damn glad that Hegseth has straightened that shit out because it needs to be straightened out. If you're going to go in the military, your job is, quite frankly, is to kill people and destroy things. We don't want to do that, obviously. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to go to combat. I'm telling you, okay? But at the end of the moment, if the call comes and if somebody endangers our nation, we're going to go out, we're coming after you, and we're going to do some bad things. That's what the military does. We're out there as choir boys. We're not out there as diplomats. When we're called upon, we're going to come out, find you, and freaking destroy you. It's that freaking simple. This shit is not that hard. And unfortunately, there's this culture that was created in the military, that changed the way the military thought. It became a social experiment, and all that happy horseshit.
We fight to win. We unleash overwhelming and punishing violence on the enemy. We untie the hands of our warfighters to intimidate, demoralize, hunt, and kill the enemies of our country. We let our leaders fight their formations, and then we have their back. It's very simple, yet incredibly powerful. You kill people and break things for a living. You are not politically correct and don't necessarily belong always in polite society. You are different. We fight not because we hate what's in front of us. We fight because we love what's behind us.
I was stoked. I had a little Woody, I'm telling you. And what I wanted to do was really, I sent out a couple of emails to people that, hey, I'm ready to come back in. I'm still fit. I can still do 20 pull-ups. And, not a problem. I'll be there tomorrow. You tell me where I need to report, and I'll be there. And I don't give a shit what rank either, Just turn me loose. I'll make shit happen. That's the way I look at things, right? And that's the type of mindset we got to have. Not the Slavic mindset. And you see some of the pictures of these generals sitting there in the front rows and stuff, and they're sort of like a bunch of old men, Slavic. And I'm looking at that, I'm like, shit, man, I wouldn't follow this guy in 1,000 years. Generals got to be inspiring. Generals got to be, that's where Chesty Puller was inspiring. That's where Patton was inspiring. That's why Terry Allen was inspiring. That's why Shoup was inspiring. People should want to follow you and through the gates of hell. And that's what combat is all about. And it's not for us to take our Marines into combat and let them die, but it's like Patton said, let that other poor son of a bitch die. That's what it's all about.
I want you to remember that no bastard ever won war by dying for his country. He won it by making the other poor dumb bastard die for his country.
So I salute you, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, and my advice to you is rev it up, because we're going to run out of time here shortly when the midterms come up. So we don't have time for speeches and stuff. Now it's time for implementation. So let's get going and let's get it on. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this topic. That's all I got. Stay rugged, stay united, stay fired up. Khan out.